When I begin working with clients, nearly all of my clients tell me that they want to feel in control of their business. Now, they don't say that verbatim. They use phrases like, I want to be organized, or I want to build systems, and I want to scale. And when I hear that, I know what they're saying. So the translation for because having done that and knowing like I know what they're talking about. So the translation is, I want to feel certain that the activities I'm taking today in my business will bear fruit in the future and help me reach my goals. That's what they're saying. They're not saying it verbatim like that, but just being in their shoes, building companies, and seeing like the frustrations and the things that you naturally face when you're growing a business. It's not a smooth ride, as you know. Like that's what they're seeking. So control, therefore, and actually begins with what you measure. Now, I'm very grateful that I've never had to report to an external board or a group of investors to run my company now. Never say never, but like thankfully that's where I'm at right now. I've always had to force myself and my clients to be profitable day one. It's very important, profitable day one, because of this, no, the metrics that my clients and I measure and the narratives we create are radically different from those who have to report to others because there's no fluffing up the story. There's either the binary, you're on track or you're off track, a point blank reality of the health of the company. And, if there's lackluster performance, there's no narrative to make up for that. It either is what it is. Either we serve clients, make a profit, invest that profit, feed our team, feed our families, or we don't. And it's as simple as that. And seeing your metrics in that way is actually empowering. It's liberating, really. And here's why. The metrics that you measure, the purpose of measuring them is to channel your and your team's energy and attention and focus into action to produce the results they aim to achieve for what the purpose of what you're measuring for. And these can be harnessed through the participation of the right inputs, the right behaviors, the right actions, and the right habits. And that includes behaviors and mindset, like the right attitude to execute the habit. And this is what we call building a system. And essentially, you're measuring the vitals of the organization. You're seeing what the weak links are, and then you're just fine-tuning the knobs and adjusting what needs to be adjusted in order to achieve the desired goal. So let's talk about building the system and the 5 fundamental knobs you control. In any organization, including your business, you can control the metric, the thing that you're actually measuring. That's number 1. The metric that you're measuring that's important to you to improve, that you can control. This means that it's also a leading indicator that you can actually control the inputs day in and day out. The second is the habit. And the nice thing is we always look at habits. Everything is cyclical. Everything works in circles for some reason. So the habit of what you, your team, or a machine is doing to execute to produce the metric, the outcome. Now, there are multiple habits that you can execute to influence one metric. So keep that in mind. So the first thing are the things that you're measuring, the metric, the thing that you can actually control. The second thing are the habits that either you, someone else, or a machine is doing on your behalf to execute, to perform, to get that metric. And you can have multiple habits to influence one metric. Now, the third is the process, the how to execute the habit, how to build a process in the workflow. This is your procedure. The fourth is the data sources, your source of truth, what have you, to identify how are you actually performing? Where are we actually measuring? How do we define, how do we view this measurement? Because there can be so many arguments just around like, how do you define this thing, especially if you're looking at attribution. And then finally, it's the owner. Who is the number one person? Not 2 people, not 3 people. Who is the number one person who is solely responsible for the metric, the habits, the behaviors, and the measurement? And when you do this across the most vital, important parts of your business, which you know, and like just to be transparent, there's usually only 5 max. Like what I've seen in larger organizations, like maximum like 15, like leading indicators and metrics. But usually it's like 5, maybe 7, maybe 8, but it's not that many, like the ones that you can actually control, because those inputs derive the outputs, and usually we try to calculate the output like revenue, but revenue is a lagging indicator to some of the inputs that you do. But anyways, when you control these knobs, you become an orchestrator. You can set the cadence of how you measure, You can also set the cadence of how you deploy energy, your team's energy, your focus, your attention to the right realms of the business. And when something's off track, you're not actually guessing. You're just looking, identifying what knob to turn, and then you set the frequency. What cadence do you want to measure? Like, how often do you want to measure? How often do you want to report? How often do you want to focus attention to this? You also want to do stoplight reporting. When a metric is underperforming, overperforming, or at performance, what do you want to do there? How do you want to review that? And also the feedback loops with your team, with the tech, and making sure that you're communicating that. And also frequency of updates of how you're executing. So then when you're orchestrating, that's what quote unquote building a system is. But essentially, you can do this by channeling your energy. So again, the metrics that you're focusing on, the things that matter most to you and your business and organization are solely there for you to channel your energy and become an orchestrator. Thank you for listening to the podcast. If you'd like to get more of these podcasts, please go ahead and subscribe to wherever you're watching or listening to the pod. If you have any suggestions or questions that you want me to answer on the pod, or you have a guest that you want me to interview, please go ahead and email me all of your suggestions and questions at podcast@dogoodwork.io. That's podcast@dogoodwork.io. If you'd like to give me public feedback, you can go on Apple Podcasts, and from there you can leave up to a 5-star review. I would greatly appreciate that. If you like more free resources where you can get my best strategies to help you increase your company's performance and scale profitably, you can get handpicked articles to propel your growth, and you can get trainings and discussions that I give freely online, as well as low-cost resources such as my books and guides. You can get all of that by going to dogoodwork.io/resources. 90% of all of these resources are not behind any email opt-in, so you can get instant access by going to dogoodwork.io/resources. Now, if you'd like to accelerate your progress and shorten the gap between information and action and start seeing results in your business, let's work together to increase your company's performance and scale profitably and serve more clients without the overwhelm. You can request a free clarity call to see how we can best support you to reach your goals by going to dogoodwork.io/apply. Again, that's dogoodwork.io/apply. As always, it's an honor to be a small part in your journey. This is Raul Hernandez. Do good work.